Death is the enemy. The first enemy and the last. The enemy always wins. And we still need to fight him.
You're scared, aren't you? What are you scared of?
Hey everybody, episode 6 trailer, let's break this down. And if you're finding me for the first time, be sure to subscribe to get everything. We only have a couple episodes left in this season. There will be a couple of announcements about what's going on during the off season and how we're going to handle book stuff next year, because there's potentially 2 Game of Thrones Song of Ice and Fire books that will be released next year. But the whole idea of this trailer is that it's sort of like their return to doing a hard home style episode North of the Wall. But because of the way the season is structured, we're still going to get scenes in other places. Like we have the stuff that's going on at Dragonstone, we have the stuff that's happening at Winterfell. So it's not all going to be set North of the Wall, even though that is the event of the episode. Like there's other stuff that's happening, but this right here, this is what's really going on. This is the thing that everybody's going to be talking about after the episode. And a couple of you have already spotted a really weird cut that they have in here. So it looks like the Hound is using the exact same Warhammer that Gendry is. So people were a little confused by that last night. Like, what's the deal? Why do they have the same hammer? So what I think is going on here is that they just cut the trailer in a weird way, and the Hound is just using Gendry's hammer, and it's just from later in the episode. So like Gendry maybe drops it while he's fighting the White Walkers, and the Hound picks it up. That doesn't necessarily mean that Gendry dies, but I think the idea here is that Beric is saying that death is the enemy always wins, meaning that he expects to die, that they'll probably be shedding a whole lot of their cast in this episode. So let's just do death predictions really quick, and I'll say right off the bat, I do think that they'll wind up killing Littlefinger this season, but I don't know if it's going to happen in episode 6 or if they'll push it to episode 7, because they have this Sansa plot that they're hyping up. You don't see Littlefinger in the trailer that much, but he's a big part of the episode, because he planted that letter that Sansa was forced to write during season 1 about Ned Stark being completely out of his wits, denouncing him as a traitor. So it just remains to be seen how much they stretch that Winterfell plot out, because that's basically what's happening at Winterfell right now. There's nothing else that's going on beyond Bran just trying to help them out north of the Wall. So just open up a tab separately from Littlefinger from all this stuff that's happening north of the Wall. So north of the Wall, death predictions, Magnificent 7. This is going from my most likely to die to my least likely. Obviously, I think that Jon Snow is the least likely to die because he's so critical for the plot. So he's got that heavy plot armor protecting him. But starting with most likely to die, Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, Tormund, Gendry, Jorah, the Hound, and then obviously Jon Snow. And I know a lot of people are like, where's Benjen? I feel like if he's going to come back, this is the episode to do it. He's also on that death predictions list, but I don't want to talk about him too much because he's not really in the trailer. You just have to remember that the dead cannot pass beyond the wall. That's what the enchantment does, is it prevents people who are either half-turned like Benjen or people who are full white from crossing. So they haven't really articulated on it yet, but Bran was marked by the Night King. Supposedly that has something to do with him making it south of the Wall. It also enables him to sort of track Bran where he is. So like he can see him at Winterfell in that sort of psychic Weirwood network space where they're looking at the past, present, and future. I still want to know if they're going to have some sort of psychic battle before the end of Season 8, but it sounds like that might not wind up happening this season. But I do feel like Bran has extra abilities that he just hasn't completely figured out yet. They do it on comic book TV shows all the time, where like the superhero gets powers, but it takes him a couple seasons to unlock all the crazy abilities that he has in the comics. Like all the abilities that he has, all the knowledge is already there in his brain. It's just that he hasn't figured out how to make use of it in the way that the Three-Eyed Raven was. So he just needs more time to mess with that. But I know a lot of people will be super bummed if Gendry dies. They want that Arya reunion. As much as that would be total fan service, I do feel like they brought Gendry back just for this moment here, just as a bit of fan service to say, hey, we didn't completely forget about this character. So early on, when it seemed like he was coming back, I was like, oh man, there's all these things they could use him for. He's this master blacksmith. They could learn how to remake Valyrian steel, arm everyone. That would be a great way to use the Gendry character, even if he wasn't around for every single episode. But it kind of seems like they're not going in that direction, and because there's only 6 episodes in the final season, it just remains to be seen. So cross your fingers for Gendry escaping. Arya is going to be so pissed with Jon if she finds out that Gendry went north of the wall. There are a couple references to things that happened earlier in the season too. So as they walk into the frozen north, you see the Hound double take as he looks at the mountain that seems like an arrowhead. That's what he saw in his vision. And then you have this big open area with the sort of platform of rocks in the middle. That's sort of the staging area where you see Jon and the others see the whites start to spill through that little opening there as they just start running for their lives to make it to that. We got a brief look at it earlier in the trailer, so all these scenes of Jon Snow and them standing here just from a little bit later in the episode, there are only 3 of them on that rock, so that does make me wonder if the others have died by the time they're standing there. But I think that's just because you can't see behind them. So it's not so much a question of who's going to die, it's of how fast are they going to kill all these people. Because I do think that more than half of the group guaranteed is going to die. But a very small chance that Jon Snow is the only person that survives. Because we do see this lone horse riding off, so I think that's Jon Snow just barely escaping with his life. And that's probably Benjen's horse. So we'll just remind everyone, please do not post spoilers for the episode in the comments. Obviously, we're not going to be able to see it till next week. Once we get a little bit closer to the finale, we can start making predictions for Season 8. Some of you have already started to do that, and they have already finished all of the scripts. There are 6 episodes in Season 8. The writing is all done. The thing that they're doing now, before they actually start shooting the episodes, is just figuring out how they're going to accomplish that. Because they've kind of been referring it to 6 2-hour movies, but that's not guaranteed. So we might get 6 movies for Game of Thrones Season 8, which would be awesome considering that we would normally get 10 episodes. But we'll see how that goes. We'll talk about that more after the season. We don't really see Cersei anywhere in this trailer, but there were so many people on my episode 5 video that are absolutely convinced that Cersei is lying about that baby. So we'll see when the episode drops, because they do sort of jump forward in time quite a bit, and Cersei doesn't look like she's anywhere near her second trimester, like she's barely showing. You can't tell with those heavy robes that she has on. But I will say, yes, I do think that she's completely irredeemable. Now that she's lost her children, the whole idea is that she's completely unchained. It's totally possible that she's faking that baby so that Jaime won't go anywhere, but I don't think that she's worried about that at this point. I think the whole reason for that baby on the TV show, which does not exist in the book, she doesn't get pregnant again in the books, is all about giving you the semblance of hope that Cersei will see reason, agree to the armistice, see the white, and then help out. So they'll lay down their arms, they'll all come together the way that they need to fight the army of the dead. Because the whole thing about Cersei is that her children were basically her soul. So when her children died, her soul died too. So she's completely unchained now. So if she were to have another child, it's almost like she would get her soul back and it would be something to redeem her. But if that baby were to die, then she would just go off the rails, which I do think that it will. I think it'll blow up in everyone's faces, and Cersei will do something super terrible, and we'll finally get to see Jaime just go, that's enough of this, I'm out of here. There's all that Jon Snow, Targaryen, Rhaegar annulment talk from last week's episode. There's so much stuff happening with what's going on north of the wall. I'm not expecting them to immediately follow up with the Rhaegar bomb that Gilly dropped. Maybe they'll save that for episode 7. There'll be at least one more scene to sort of touch on that and broaden the context. Like, they wouldn't just leave you hanging with that until season 8. So what's going to happen next is I'll post my Q&A video. Just leave all the questions that you want me to include. There is a new round of that HBO Now giveaway. I'll just announce the winner when I post that Q&A video. What's going to start happening in the off-season is that they'll start spinning up Westworld. They're going to be premiering that probably in the spring next year. In the books that George R. Martin might be releasing next year, he just casually dropped that he might have 2 books to release next year, is Fire and Blood, the Targaryen family history book that he'd been talking about for a long time. That's actually pretty cool. It's just like a history of Song of Ice and Fire told from the perspective of the Targaryen family. And then obviously Winds of Winter. So he just casually saying that there might be 2 books instead of just Winds of Winter. So what'll happen is if it takes them till 2019 to get season 8 out, then most of my Game of Thrones bonus videos between show stuff will be book videos next year, so you have plenty of time to catch up if you haven't started reading the books yet. But while you wait for everything, you can click here for my episode 5 video again, and you can click here to learn all about the Children of the Forest and the White Walker symbols that Jon Snow found. Thank you so much for watching. Everybody stay awesome. I'll see you guys tonight.